on stopping the violence and all that God has inspired you to say. And then after that, we have a question and answer period. People in the audience can uh, ask you questions or make some statements and comments to you as well. So we
Okay.
look forward to yes, yes.
Okay. We've been live.
Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you very much. We have a very special guest who I've met, and actually I've met him through media first, and then we met on other occasions. He's a dynamic speaker and a dynamic man, a man of God. First of all, I want to introduce myself. My name is Reverend Zachary Oliver, and I am the Vice President of UPF. And we have been doing this webinar for a couple of years now. And times go so fast. We want to, say Happy New Year's again to this year of 2024, which promises to be a year of great victory and a great year of great change and change for good. That's what we want to claim. Now, we have started this Stop the Violence webinar based on, gun violence. That's how it started. Then we realized that as I've always said, and this is my motto, that a gun is an inanimate object. It takes a person to pick that gun up and shoot it and harm another person. So what is the root cause of that person picking up that particular weapon to hurt his fellow brother or his fellow sister? And through these webinars, we have had the opportunity to glean from different leaders, religious leaders, as Pastor Burns. He's also a political leader as well in his own right. Judges and law enforcement officers have come on, and they have shared some very powerful and innovative and incredible avenues that they have been taking to make an indent in American society and stopping the violence. And so today I've asked this great man, Pastor Mark Burns. Let me tell you a little bit about Pastor Mark Burns is the founder and senior pastor of the Harvest Praise and Worship Center in Easley, South Carolina. For a crucial website address, also he has a crucial website addressing the pressing issues of crime and violence in America, engaged in a powerful discussion and gain insights on how faith and community can play a pivotal role in bringing about positive change. Pastor Burns, known for his inspirational leadership, will share perspectives and solutions aimed at fostering unity and safety in our nations. Pastor Burns, great to see you. Last time I saw you, it was at the Washington Times at our event, but it's great to see you as well. Welcome to our platform.
Thank you so much, Dr. Oliver, and everybody that is here. Thank you, Dr. Oliver, for your leadership and how you are helping to bring our nation together and internationally as we move forward as one people to stop the violence in the world. Well, Dr. Oliver, I paid him to say all those very nice things about me, so he is too kind. But stopping the violence, that is a heavy topic, obviously a very serious topic that is not just plaguing the United States of America, but it is plaguing incidents around the world. And the sad part about it is that people are becoming more and more emboldened to harm people and to do nefarious things, even in broad daylight. There was a time where crimes happened in the secret of the night, like Nicodemus, right? There was a time where people would do it and try not to get caught. But unfortunately, in this society and in this season that we're in, people are becoming more and more emboldened, regardless if it's in the suburbs or in the ghettos. Crime is happening, especially violent crimes are happening more and more often. And as I was thinking about how do we stop the violence, and I'm happy to hear what Dr. Oliver said about the guns. Obviously, guns, it's a simple tool. It really is all about how that tool is being used in the hands of the beholder. We've all have heard this very same statement that you can take a hammer and build a house, but you can also take a hammer and bash in somebody's head. And so it's all about the individual and how we utilize that tool. So I don't think guns is our problem. I think a lot of it has to do with how we give information to the world. I believe the internet is a dangerous tool. I know we're using the internet, but how the internet is in the hands of our young people today, they are getting exposed to so much violence at such a young age, at the simple fingertips in their hands. And maybe some of your children or grandchildren have these little devices called cell phones, and they're able to access a wide world of information. And I think that's one of our issues. It's because if you think about it, young people today, they don't honor elders anymore. They don't say yes, sir, or no, sir, yes, ma'am, or no, ma'am. I don't know about you all, but I'm from South Carolina. And so here in the South, when we talk to our adults, we were trained and taught at early ages to say yes, sir, and no, sir, yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, because it was a sign of honor. But now those things are being deteriorated. And even with the internet and the power of the violence that is happening on young people's phones, you're now seeing a higher attack in the elderly. You're seeing a higher attack against police. You're seeing a higher suicide rates amongst young people in this nation. And I believe that there has to be, think about this. Why is it that in China, and I'm not trying to say that we need to pattern ourselves after China, but what I am saying is that they understand that TikTok is a dangerous tool in the hands of young people. It fries their brain. It's a new drug. They stop trying to be the next engineers. They stop trying to be the next doctors. They stop trying to be the next mathematician that creates a proof. Today in America, the number one goal of most young people is to become a TikTok influencer. But in China, they regulate this amount of TikTok that people can view because they understand it is rattling the brain. And I believe in America, we have it wide open to where our young people are receiving this information. They're watching sexual activities that are happening on the internet. They're watching violent activities that are happening on the internet. And they're thinking that that's the norm. And unfortunately, it's becoming the norm of our society. There was a time back in the age of what we call some call the greatest generation of the World War II time period. And it was in that time where people treated our adults with respect and with kindness. Today, that is gone. And I believe a lot of it has to do with the fact that how information is being dispelled to our people today. And I believe that if we have the people as a society, even politically, as Dr. Oliver stated, my hands are very involved politically. And that's one of the things that we talk about often is how do we regulate information to young people? How do we protect their minds? Think about this. You understand that when a child is molested at a young age, it warps their minds for the rest of their lives. It affects them significantly. You can even connect how young children who were molested at young ages or they were exposed to a very violent situation at a young age, and how that has tied as they grew up to become adults, how it is tied into some of their activities as grown individuals. Some mass murderers have the very same patterns. Violent people, criminals in jail, they don't have a father, and I'm gonna talk about that in a minute because the lack of the father is a major issue. And so why and how we stop the violence. We have to empower men to be men. We have to empower the fathers to be fathers. We have a society now to where you punish families for the presence of a man, right? But I'm getting off the subject a little bit, but I'll get to that in a minute because I want to talk about that. But until we as a society recognize that when a child is molested or some violent, horrendous activity happens when they're a child, it warps their mind all the way to adulthood. So you can see mass rapists. You can see a pattern within mass murderers. You can see a pattern within violent individuals that have been exposed to something that their young mind should never have been exposed to at such a young age. And it transformed their entire mindset throughout their whole adulthood. Does anybody understand what I'm saying? Just say yes. I understand. And so therefore, that's what's happening today, every day in America, when a young child picks up a cell phone and a young child can easily access violent materials, access X-rated materials, right? Access things that may sometimes become difficult for parents who may be working hard, who may be trying their best to provide for their children, and so they're not able to always monitor everything that they're doing. What a lot of these children are getting, what I call mind molested at young ages. And once that happens at these young ages, they are looking at other people treating the police officers with disrespect. They're looking at the examples of violent activities that are happening all over the world. And instead of having the protection of mama and daddy, and that's the world that they live in, so therefore that's the culture that that child is molded into, that child is exposed to hundreds of thousands of different cultures all over the world. And they have been mind molested at young ages. And it is producing this result of a young person who has no respect for law enforcement, have no respect for our society, and they care less about the safety of others. That is a serious, major issue within American society. And until we, as a community, as a culture, come together and figure out a way to regulate what our young people are exposed to. There was a time where you couldn't put X-rated things on television, but now it's regular. It happens on a regular basis because we, as those of us who are conservative, those of us who believe that we have a society of order, we're not speaking up. And that's why I thank Dr. Oliver for hosting this, because he's empowering us to have this very serious conversation and to have this mindset as to what can we do as a society to stop the violence. My second point is the lack of the fathers in the home. My first point is the internet. The second point is the lack of fathers in the home, right? That is a major, I believe it's the number one issue why there's so much violence in society today. Because we are raising a generation of fatherless boys who are becoming grown men. And they don't understand the concept of what it really means to be a grown man because there was no father in the home. And this is happening across all society, not just within the Black community. This is happening across the board. And I'm speaking specifically in America. I know there's different cultures in different parts of the world, but in America, the father is absent, especially within the Black community. Especially within the Black community, the fathers are absent. And it has a lot, and I want to be very clear. It is not because Black men just don't like being fathers. A society has insisted, helped to create the Black fatherless home. And that is through the welfare system, That is through and there's not enough regulatory on the welfare system, and it punishes men for being in the home. It punishes the mama for having children, and as long as there's a man present, they begin to lose those access to those resources. And so over time, it becomes a choice. The mother chooses whether I have this man in my life that's the father of my children, or do I go and get the assistance? And the system is not designed to push them out of the system. The system is becoming a net and not a trampoline. And that's something that has to change. That the welfare system has to be a trampoline, not a net that entangles them, that keeps them in there, where they become so dependent on social welfare and not becoming an independent citizen. But as long as the father is not in the home, right? If fathers, and I'm a father to my sons. I have two sons. I'm a father to my sons. Why? Number one reason, because my father taught me how to be a father. And his father taught him how to be a father. And when there's a strong male presence in the house that teaches order, my father taught me respect for the police badge. My father would throw me up against the wall if I ever sassed at my mama and reminded me that he is the alpha in the house. And my mama may be my mama, but she is first my wife. So he was teaching his children, especially his boys, how to have respect for our elders. And so therefore he taught me respect for the badge. He taught me respect for the community, because that's the role of a man, is to lead. We have too many soft, weak men in society today that are not leading, and number one, leading their families. If a man is leading their sons, statistics shows that they are less likely to go to jail. They're less likely to perform a violent crime. They're less likely to go against society's laws, because there's a strong. Now, I'm not taking anything from the strong women that has to step up and be those mothers and those fathers when there is no man present. But there is something special and unique when a man steps up and be a man, and they leave their family unit, regardless if the government is involved or not. And I think the government, brings us to my third point, needs to get out of the families. The government needs to get out of the families, and the families need to be able to be that strong family unit that it used to be. We have a government that does not promote true family unity. They do not. And so, and because of that, and the media and the entertainment world is making it more and more normal to destroy the family unit. And that's what I believe. If we would do those three things, we got to guard what our children are watching. We got to. I believe it. I love America. I'm part of the red, the white, and the blue. I'm a true patriot. And I believe that we have the freedom to do what we desire to do. But there has to be within the confines of a society. It cannot be just whatever goes, because therefore we're not a sovereign nation at that point. We're just a group of independent thoughts. So therefore you don't even need a central government. Are you understand what I'm saying? Am I making sense to anybody? Right? I'm going to talk to you like congratulations. You just came to a black church today. Congratulations. I'm going to preach to you for a little bit. Is that okay? Y'all got to shout.
Way to go.
But the point is, we got to get the government out of our families. We got to start regulating somehow what our little children are being exposed to. That's why I want to get the government out of the educational system too. They do not need to be a part of the educational system. Our children need to get back to learning about the pro-American activities, learning about arithmetic, learning about mathematics, learning how to become entrepreneurs, even learning how to farm. Don't you all remember? Maybe some of y'all are too young on here, so maybe y'all don't remember. But for those of us, we remember that in school, We had a home ed class where they would teach us how to sew. They would teach us how to cook. We had a welding class where they were teaching us how to do these basic material things that made us producing Americans, right? They've eliminated all of that today. And so the government has to get out of the educational system. We got to have a society where we're monitoring what our little children are watching and getting exposed to. The internet, I believe, is a culprit, Dr. Oliver. It's a massive, massive issue. And so we got to regulate the internet for little children. We got to put the fathers back in the homes. And number three, we have to get the government out of our families and our school. And that's, I believe, because again, and I'm going to use my culture, the Black community, as an example. Black people aren't naturally violent, no more than white people are. Right? There are some pockets in America, especially in urban areas, where there's a lot of Black people. There's a high crime rate in a lot of these areas. That is not because Black people are just naturally violent people. We're no more naturally violent than any person that is on this call. The issue is not guns. The issues are a lack of opportunity. And if we would spend more time, stop talking about gun violence and focus more on academics, focus more on job creation, focus more on internship. Trust me when I tell you, a gangbanger that may be slinging drugs right now, if they were given an opportunity to become an electrician without any education, but an electrician, a master electrician, took advantage of, took this person under their wing, you will find that a lot of these drug dealers will put their drugs down and they will begin to become these master electricians sitting under a master electrician. These are the type of programs that we have to implement. Spend more time doing this. Spend more time creating opportunities. I used to say it all the time. We don't need to be taking a knee to the flag. If you're going to take a knee, go take a knee at the Department of Commerce. Spend more time focusing on where the real problem is. And it's not the American flag. The real problem is not giving the opportunities. And I'm going to say this last thing and I'm going to end it, because Dr. King said this. America says that we as a people need to be able to pull ourselves up from our own bootstraps and rise to the occasion. But Dr. King said it like this. That would be great if we were ever given the boots to pull ourselves up. And that's not just within the Black community. That happens even in white communities too. There's a lot of poor white people in America, right? If you don't believe me, go to the Appalachian areas right now. There are some areas in Appalachia that right now in America, they don't have lights. They don't have electricity in certain parts of America. There are food deserts all over this nation. So what I'm saying is poverty knows no color. Okay? Doesn't matter what race you are. But the reality of it is, until we as a society start identifying that the real issue is not the color of our skin, it's not even our location. It's about the haves and the have-nots. And it is our job to equip those that are willing, who are part of the have-nots, to become a part of the haves. When you get to that issue, you begin to see the balance begin to drop in this nation. Dr. Oliver.
Thank you very much. That was quite dynamic, and I knew you would give a dynamic presentation. You know, I like what you said. You really hit very well on the internet, the fathers, and the government. And one of the things that ran across my mind when you were speaking was you were talking about that we are a free society, but there are boundaries, there are principles that should be adhered to allow this free society not to become out of order, but it keeps it in order, but also your freedom is still intact. One
Yes.
of the things that I thought about when this nation was conceived to be a people who kind of like can rule themselves, people can govern themselves, right? Uh, but they need, of course, other politicians to help them govern, but usually we kind of govern themselves. The experiment was the only way they can work was that you need a virtuous people, correct? So
Mm-hmm.
virtuous people automatically said there were some principles, there was a moral construct that was inculcated within them that they can go and begin to govern themselves as well. Is that correct? So
Absolutely.
so those principles and that a virtuous people can be only molded by certain Christian or spiritual values, right? So we're losing all those spiritual values that regulation was supposed to be only based on your conscience. And the conscience is regulated by the values, your value system. And our value system is being shot down, destroyed, and trying to be completely deleted. And that's why
Absolutely.
you will have this whole internet bit, and you're so correct about China. They already know that, and also the fathers at home, that's incredible. As you said, it is more prevailing because of some other extenuating circumstances in the Black community, in the brown communities. And of course, this what you shared about the government is so correct. Thank you very much. You did an excellent job, a very valiant job, and I know a lot of people here really enjoy you. And I see already Reverend Franklin has his hand up to ask you a question or even share a statement with you. Welcome, Reverend Franklin. How are you, my brother?
I'm good. Thank you so much, Reverend Oliver. Thank you, everybody. Pastor Burns, thank you so much, for your presentation and all the insights and thoughts and perspectives in which you just presented. Because I am so proud of you, sir, and I'm so proud of the clergy, because it seems as though that the clergy is little by little beginning to embrace and take an ownership of these issues in question. And and that is, I think that is profoundly important, because I think clergy, they identify that this is not just an external circumstance, that this is a spiritual war. We're actually in a spiritual war, because, see, we've had so many wonderful patriots like yourself who've been on this program, and they offered incredible solutions that actually positively influence the environment and created many possibilities for the people who they serve. The question, powers that be, they know this. So that is a big question. So, and then at the same time, here we are. We're dealing with pollution in the air, how our systems are poisoning our soil, and also how systems is poisoning our water. And then at the same time, you have the technology that can actually derive water from the atmosphere. They're machines. You can go on YouTube and you can go to Lowe's department store, and you can construct a machine that will build and help you get water from the atmosphere. The will we're talking about, the will. That's why it's a spiritual war, because we know these things, and the will to help these people in other parts of the world is not there. That's why it's a spiritual thing. And also, you talked about China, and you're so right on the point about China, about TikTok. They relegate how much their young people can watch TikTok, maybe about an hour. And the only areas that they will allow their citizens to watch TikTok, it has to be based on educational substance of items, substantive items. But we see all kind of stuff over here.
Yes.
And so and it's so many things I can say, but thank you so much for putting that out there. God bless you and keep on with the wonderful work that you're doing, sir.
Thank you so much, Reverend Franklin. You inspired me, sir. I'm so grateful and humbled to be here before all of you all. And thank you for your words, Reverend Franklin. You spot on too, sir. So to God be the glory. But you're right. It is a spiritual battle. And until we get more and more believers recognizing that, understanding that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, right? That we're fighting a spiritual war. But the more of us that are recognizing it, we can fight it more on our knees, more in the presence of the Lord Jesus Christ, and fighting it through the power of the Holy Spirit. Thank you so much, Reverend Franklin.
Thank you, Reverend. Thank you. Welcome, John O'Connor. Welcome.
Thank you, Pastor Burns, so much. You said so many things that encapsulated so many of our speakers. Had maybe one or two things you said. You said 10 or 12 things. You like the idea of the father. The male presence is so important. But what I'd like to propose is that we look at this, that make a national education board. Using all these ideas, and get other people we know on this kind of board, make some gathering together, and then make some national presentation of exactly what you want to do with these points you said. We can do that, but it just takes some research and getting people to cooperate. And we've been talking with Reverend Oliver more about that, making national education program, national kind of presence. So we're going to work on that for sure. But what you said today really was very wonderful, encapsulated very much what it is. And one single thing is male presence, just that one thing would help change the country. Someone said weak men are destroying America. That's the way it is, right? It's true.
So true.
Thank you so much for all you said. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Brother John, and God bless you, sir. And you're absolutely right. We got to put the fathers back in the home again. If we don't have the fathers, and again, I really think that's. And again, I don't want to be any kind of conspiracy theories, but I think that certain things are deployed into our nation that are not deployed in other nations, with the simple fact to brainwash our children to lose sight on honoring their parents. The Bible says, honor thy mother and father, that thy days shall be long upon the earth. In the New Testament, it says, honor thy mother and father, that life will go well with you. And these are the principles that we must be reinstilling into our children. One of my biggest pet peeves, John, is to see a child disrespect their mother or father, like at the grocery store. And the worst thing is to see a parent don't do anything about it. And it's creating a society. The Bible says, spare the rod, spoil the child.
Amen. There you go. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, John. Yes, Bruce Sucher, Dr. Bruce, how are you?
Hey, good to see you and be with all of you. A word of warning, I have a 110-pound dog sitting next to me who may bark at any moment. So anyway, I have a couple of things to say. First of all, Pastor Burns, thank you so much. And I can identify myself as a Christian pastor. Okay. However, it's important for you to know that I grew up Jewish in Chicago. So I'm not a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant by any means. And of course, given all the anti-Semitism that's going on right now, I can understand persecution. And I went to Indiana University, but my first job was to teach in an all-black high school in Englewood, one of the more difficult areas of Chicago. I grew up, on the other hand, in an all-white Jewish neighborhood of North Chicago, where the only African Americans I ever saw were either the cleaning ladies that came in or the black man that was dropped off with a mountain of coal behind a large apartment building and spent the whole day shoveling the coal into the apartment building. My comment really comes from something that Reverend Oliver said, and he alluded to black and brown people. And of course, I know that's true, but I think one thing that's more true for me is more than being black or brown, the fact is they're poor. I had one experience. When I taught, which was about 1970, Chicago Public Schools were trying to integrate, which meant maybe a quarter of the teachers in the black school were white. I was one of those. And what I experienced, and I understand this, but I'm just going to give some facts. What I realized was the African American teachers, who were all middle class, well paid somewhat, didn't relate to the African American poor students. I felt, being Jewish, you raise with an understanding that the history of Judaism in America is that somebody would come in from Eastern Europe or Russia, and they'd be embraced by the Jewish community that would help them out. The exact same things happening with the Indian community. In Chicago, every Dunkin' Donuts is owned by an Indian family, and they'll bring some relative over from India to work with them. But I didn't experience that in my school. What I experienced an absolute separation and division between the poor black students and the middle class Jewish teachers. In fact, I wanted to live in that area. I desired to live right near my school in that area. And the African American teachers strongly discouraged me from doing that. They said, you have to have a place that you can go home to, away from this environment. And that's what they did. Anyway, that's my point. I wonder, Pastor Burns, how you would react to that if more than color, either brown or black or yellow or red, or as Reverend Dunlap always said, purple, I see that, and I'm not saying it's the only thing, but I don't think there's any emphasis put on poverty as opposed to race.
Well, Dr. Bruce, I thank you so much for sharing that. And I think I hit it on it a little bit earlier when I was speaking, and maybe you missed that part. But I do believe that the biggest issue in America is not about race or even racism. Does it exist? Absolutely, because it's sin. And as long as Satan dwells on this world, there's always going to be sin. And it doesn't even matter what color you are. If you don't believe me, go back to 1994 in Rwanda and the Rwandan genocide, the Hutus versus the Tutsis, and they were all black, right? But one side was 1 million killed in 30 days, and so it literally boils down to the haves and the have-nots. Because, as I said earlier, poverty knows no color. Whether you are a African American from the lower parts of Chicago to a West Virginian Appalachian individual who lives in a small community that has no running water, and these places actually exist. They have no power. They have no electricity. They still have to go out and use still use a pump. A well to draw their water. This is in America in 2024 that is happening. And so poverty knows no color. And I think that's connected to the high crime of violence that's happening in our world. for me, I think we should spend more time not about so much addressing the violent nature of people, but more so the core, the source. Number one, the source is Satan. And then Satan manifests through poverty, right? You treat a man like a dog for a long time, eventually he will start acting like one, right? You keep poking at the bear long enough, eventually his mind will change and he will become like a bear. If the moment that an individual loses their financial status, their animalistic side comes out. If you don't believe me, go ask the individuals at the latest banking crisis that we had in America. What was the name of the banks recently that folded? Lord.
Doesn't matter. A couple of them.
Yeah, yeah. In the Silicon Valley banks, yes, the Silicon Valley banks that folded, and all those doctors and lawyers and people who could not immediately access their money, their violent nature came out, and so therefore the point is, it's not about race at all. Again, as I said, it seems more predominantly in certain communities like the Black community, because not because of the color, but because of the lack of opportunity, right? That exists. And to be honest with you, it is a real, very real thing. Until we get, to be honest with you, our white brothers and sisters who still have the power in America, no matter how you slice it, to look at and say the Black, brown, and poor white individuals, if you are low income, we are going to use our resources to make sure that we give you access, like Dr. King said, give you the boots so that you can pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. But in a lot of situations, that's not the case. And a lot of individuals do not receive those boots. They're born in America, and it doesn't matter if they're Black or they're white or they're brown or they're Asian. Again, if you're born in a society, it's more prevalent amongst Black community, because we only make up 13-14%, and the poverty rate amongst our communities is really high, really, really high. But it's not because Black people are lazy. It's because of a lack of information and a lack of resources to discover. But again, it's not just within the Black community. This happens across all Americans. So those of us who have, it is our obligation, I believe, spiritually, to give this information and to help raise up our brothers and our sisters, regardless of the color of their skin.
Well, Pastor Burns, 2 points I just want to respond to, if I may. The first would be that I wish to God that more people express what you just expressed, rather than throwing the word racism out there for everything. And the other one that's even more important to me is that you attributed so much of the trouble directly at Satan. You know, every time I hear of the latest, and there haven't been too many lately, gratefully, mass shooting, it seems like all the media cares about is, why did he do it? Why did he do it? And I think you and I could say in 1 minute, it's not the person that did it. Satan took over that person's spirit, and Satan committed those crimes, not the guy in Highland Park or the guy in Nashville or whatever. So it doesn't matter who did it. We know, Pastor Burns, you and I and everybody on this call knows who did it. And so I just want to thank you. I'm so grateful. People don't talk about Satan, right? That's his goal, is to make the world believe he doesn't exist. And for
Absolutely.
you to come out right away and say, Satan, amen. Thank you so much, Pastor.
To God be the glory, Dr. Bruce. Thank you so much for your comment, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce, for your comment. And I'm glad you answered that. As I was going to say, statistics still say that predominantly in some Black communities, that's where you might see a lot of the violence and stuff like that. So I'm glad you shared that. And I always have this thing, and I think Pastor Burns, there's a system still. A system is not controlled by me, So it happened it's still controlled by other people who do not have the sensitivity to a particular people that also contributes to the poverty. And I think that we have to come to that reality. And you can't change. How could you change with if the system, you know, doesn't help you to be accountable because you're part of the system, you know? But I would like to say, and it's easy to say that people have a tendency to harp on Black people when they mention racism. But I don't think we mention it just because we want to mention it just to be negative. We're mentioning it as a reality out there that needs to be dealt with, you know. And Martin Luther King, he did because of racism in America, he was able to liberate people all over because of what they called was his anyway, a policy was the policy that we help do here is used with the United Nations now to serve all humanity beyond race and color. So I want to thank you so much for sharing those things, Pastor Byrne. And by the way, Dr. Bruce, Pastor Byrne's wife is also Caucasian. So he's a man of intercultural, international, and interracial. Am I correct, Dr. Burns, Pastor Burns?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But
Yes,
I'm sure her blood is exactly the same color as yours, Pastor Burns.
and so is
I
our
just, and I apologize
And
to Reverend Hankins, but I have to say one more thing, and that is one of our founding ACLC members was a man named Reverend A.I. Dunlap, an AME pastor, who was Dr. King's point man in Virginia. And Dr. Burns, Pastor Burns, you mentioned the idea of trying to bring people from both ends into the middle class. But Reverend Dunlap would disagree with you. He'd say that our society cannot, this is his comments, our society cannot function without the poverty class. He would say that the white powers that be will never try and bring everybody into the middle class because it'll never work. And in a conversation I had recently with Chicago Congressman Danny Davis, Congressman Davis said something I never heard before. He said the whole purpose of his being in Congress is to try and bring people from both ends of the financial spectrum toward the middle. And interestingly, he has the richest congressional district in America in downtown Chicago. And then on the west side of Chicago, one of the poorest. But he absolutely, he said without that desire in his own heart, he would not ever have been a congressman. That he's trying to do is bring both ends toward the middle.
And Bruce.
Dr. Hankins, I apologize for taking up your time.
Yeah, we're coming close to the close of the meeting. Thank you so much, Bruce. All right, my dear friend, Wayne Hankins, welcome.
Thank you, Reverend Oliver. And Pastor Burns, you uplift me hearing what you're saying. And you uplift me because you see the greatness of America, not just the blemishes and the sins that we've committed. And your point, you're focusing on real good solutions. Because you love this country, this is God's country. It has a unique history going back from the Pilgrims, a God-centered history. And at every critical point in our history, God has given us the right person to lead America. He gave us Abraham Lincoln during the time of the Civil War. On a national level, he gave us Martin Luther King later on, and Mahatma Gandhi. God is deeply involved in our country. God is not something far away that we cannot access. And what God has done in our time has been to bring the person on a worldwide level to this world, to bring the world and America and all other countries back to God. And that man was selected by Jesus Christ. As a teenager in 1936, he came to visit him spiritually, just as you and I are speaking here. And he gave him a mission to complete the mission that Jesus wanted to do. And that is to bring the kingdom of God here on earth, to realize the ideal that God wanted from the very beginning. But because of the fall of man and Satan coming into human affairs, even to this day, we have these problems. This one man and his wife, the one that we call God's only begotten daughter, are working together. He's passed on in 2012, but his wife is continuing the work, and the work is God's work. And if we listen to the people, read their words, see the vision that they have, they really bring God down to us. And they've done more than that. They've done it through innumerable programs in business and economics and media and academia, many different things. There's over 600 volumes this man alone has written over the course of his life about God's will. If we really want to solve the problems, we need to go to the person that God has given us at this time. And that has been the Reverend Moon and his wife who are leading this. This is the main point. It's no different than 2,000 years ago when Jesus Christ was that man.
So Wayne, yeah. So why don't we? Thank you so much for that. Actually, Pastor Burns, thank you so much, because Pastor Burns, we're coming to a close. Pastor Burns we even really understands what Reverend Father Moon has done with the Washington Times. Is a very strong paper who stands for family, faith, and country. Not for family, faith, and country for its self purpose, but why God created America for all humanity. And people don't like that, but it's true. And so Reverend Moon, as he was saying, and Mother Moon have been forerunners for that, and they understand the value. Back in the 1976, all the way that they were, God bless America. It was going out of style, but they brought it back in style, and as you know, Pastor Burns stands on the same platform. So I want to thank you so much for that. Thank you, Wayne. As we come to a close, I want to as you get the last word, I want to thank you for coming on. We want you to come on again. John was so correct. Mr. O'Connor was so correct. We will begin to put a
Hold on, he'll be back.
synergy. You find power together, and a strong voice together. But there's something that I would like you to close on and give you the last words. Is that I like your little cliche that you said. Explain again. Not a net. Not a net, but not with a net versus a trampoline.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much, Dr. Oliver, for giving me your platform, sharing your platform to the nation and to the world, and to the many great things the Washington Post and the entire family is doing to have helped shape American society and the world, and the kindness that through the teachings of Master Jesus, we are all better for it. And so I'm thankful for the entire family and what God is doing through this ministry. That I believe that the welfare system has become a net. And essentially what that means is that when somebody drops into a net, it captures them and entangles them to where they cannot get out. And so instead of the welfare system being a trampoline that when they fall into it, they bounce right back up. And now they're back on. It's not designed to keep them there. It's designed to just use it for a brief moment and bounce them back to where they can walk on their own. But the government has created it now to where it just becomes a net, a web. And they fall in it and they tingle and they never get out of it. And then they create generational curses because their children are in it. And then their children's children are in it. And for you know it, you have communities that have been living in welfare homes and welfare communities for multiple generations. And so you only are what you know, right? And it's not that people are lazy, even in some cases. There are some lazy people, and there are some people that take full advantage of the system, and they are lazy. There are a lot of men, they're lazy. But you have to speak to the truth, the fact that how the system is set up oftentimes it's not designed to encourage a person to get a job, get transportation, and build their own wealth and spend more time teaching them about financial literacy than spending more time of teaching them how to get food stamps, right? We spend more money on promoting food stamps, more money on getting free cell phone minutes, right? We spend more money on advertising for these free things and little money on teaching them how to manage a checkbook or how to build your credit or how to gain access to capital, right? How to become an 8A organization and do business with the government. And so that's what I mean. Until we can break that cycle up, it will be a perpetual cycle of keeping the violence happening in America.
Totally agree. William, I'm so sorry, Bill, almost at the close, right at the speaker. Did you want to just say, Bill is a great man. I didn't see your hand up, brother.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Pastor Burns, thank you so much. Please understand that you're preaching to the choir, and we love you very much, and we can hear God speaking, and we want you to speak to more people. But one thing I'd like for you to clarify is that analogy of the trampoline versus the net. It's my understanding that the original welfare legislation was written back when President Roosevelt was trying to help the people who had to leave their physical home. Men had to go out to find jobs elsewhere all around the country because of the way the economy was. But then eventually, after the war ended and people came back home and the economy started reviving and becoming stronger again, that legislation stayed in place so that it benefited those families where the men left or were at least not available when the welfare agent came to that house. I can't understand, after all these years and after all the brought, why civil rights has not forced Congress to change that legislation so that it would benefit families who do have the husband and father there present instead of absent. Would you help me to understand that?
The Bible says this, that my people perish for lack of knowledge and wisdom. The reality of it is that most people just don't even know what you just said. What they do know is that they, and again, I don't want to make this political at all. So my goal is to try to just keep it as biblical as possible. But you know, and we're at the end of this. I wish this question was asked at the beginning because I would spend a whole nother hour talking about this because it's very passionate to my heart and to my life. And so people perish for lack of knowledge. They just have no idea. And until we empower people with wisdom to understand that the current welfare system was really pushed by President Lyndon Baines Johnson when he said, I will have those Negroes, and that's not the term he used, voting Democrat for the next 100 years. It is an actual ploy that was created to offset the Southern strategy into winning the national election. And you got to remember, if you go back and look at Dr. King became very frustrated with Lyndon Baines Johnson. First, he became frustrated with the Kennedys because they promised to create a to help poverty, right? Because again, a lot of Black people in the southern states are in poverty, still are. But Dr. King worked really hard to fight for the voters' right bill, and in that was designed to push a legislation, as you may know, to help deal with poverty, to make it better. Now, when Kennedy was assassinated, right, President Dr. King was left to deal with Lyndon Baines Johnson, who, if you go back and read the history books, had zero intention of continuing that legacy, but because President Kennedy was so popular and Lyndon Baines Johnson wanted to win, President Johnson wanted to win the next election in his own right, he had to partner with the legacy of President Kennedy. Now, if you go back and read the history book and read Dr. King's notes, there was a major confrontation between Dr. King and the Johnson administration. Right, we have these small snippets of clips of them smiling and being happy, but behind the scene there was a lot of confrontation, and it even led up to Dr. King's assassination, because the moment Dr. King began to speak against the Vietnam War that Johnson supported, right, the support left. The point that I'm making is this: Dr. King was trying, he knew those things were in place then and tried to get it changed. President Johnson knew that the ignorance of people is bliss for him, and the one-sided party, clear. And so therefore policies are still in place, not so much to help people, but to win a certain demographic of votes. And unfortunately, because people are ignorant to what you just said, of how it's solely designed, even out, to push the fathers out the home, and that legislation has not been updated, we are where we are today. And I personally believe, based off of the transcripts of things that that Dr. King said, and the confrontation with President Johnson, right, that it's an intentional feat. It's intentional, just like Margaret Sanger and the abortion clinic in America, right? It's intentional. Right. So when Reverend Oliver speaks of Dr. Oliver speaks about, you can't ignore the systems that are in place, right? Most people ignore them. They are actually in place. And until we get enough brothers and sisters, and I speak particularly to my white brothers and sisters who don't see color, they see human beings, right? It's not a Black problem, it's a human problem, right? And until you get more people who are linking arms together, like what Dr. King did, the civil rights movement didn't happen if it wasn't for our white brothers and sisters who stood with Dr. King, for our Jewish brothers and sisters that stood with Dr. King, for our Muslim, the Muslim community, the Jewish, all the faiths that said, you know what, the rabbis, all of them said, you know what, it's not a Christian movement, it's a human movement. And we all linked arms together, and Dr. King was the face of the movement. But there were so many unsung heroes throughout America that they were not Black. And so until we as a society start looking at this as a human issue and not a Black issue, right? That's why Black Lives Matter doesn't work, right? It doesn't work because it is segregating people and bringing people together. And so it's forcing people to look at it as a Black issue, not a human rights issue. Does that make sense, Dr. Stoner?
Yeah, thank you very much.
That's my very short version, short version
Yes.
of that response.
So yeah, so you're correct. And it just so happens that society has relegated it to Black and white, and we have to deal with it accordingly, right? But I would like to say this: there were people who did try to counter the administration, that particular policy that was targeted to those people who became victims of it, and that this particular welfare system was even reading the Moynihan report, right? Which he saw it, he prophesied what would happen if the fathers are not at their houses. If you keep doing this, this would happen, and it's happening exactly what he wrote, you know, what in 1960 something. How many years ago was that? Also, you know, it's a human problem, and this is targeted to those who understand something called the unification principles, right? And it's called restoration principles of restoration. Principle of restoration is colorblind. It's what we do is a human problem. How we begin to solve the human problem by my actions that I take that is beyond my color, but is for the sake of something greater than myself. And have we all gotten to that point? I don't think so. And once we get to that point, will we not see God? Will we not see the true change that we will? Because it wouldn't be about color. It would be about those human attributes that disallows me, that comes from Satan, to really see my brother and appreciate my brother, no matter what color is his skin. So I was sacrificing his behalf because I want to see a greater world, you know. So those are the type of things that I was raised under as well. So I love what you just said. It is a human problem. My brother, God bless you. I know you had a lot to say. You did an excellent job. I want to thank him, everyone. I want to thank everyone for coming on. I want to thank you. I look forward to Pastor Burns. I know we've been talking about really getting together, but we will.
Yes.
And I look forward. I look forward to talking with you again. So everyone, God bless you. Thank you for an incredible program again, and thank you for your incredible presentation.
God bless you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Pastor Burns. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Pastor Burns.
We love you.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Reverend Oliver. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
God bless
Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
God bless. Thank you.
Great.
Nice day.
We'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Yeah.
God bless you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Looking
Bye.
forward to Pastor Burns Part 2.
Assalamu alaikum, my brother.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. God bless you, my brother.
Yes, there he is.